So hello and welcome to this new section, and in this section we are going to cover a few advanced concepts in Django. So we are going to learn about pagination, search, virtual environments and user permissions in a Django app. So let's first go ahead and start with pagination. So what exactly is pagination? Pagination is actually the process of separating print or digital content into discrete pages. So if you have ever used any website with lots of contents on it, you will be able to see these kinds of things on the bottom of the web page, which actually allow you to navigate through your entire website. So let's say, for example, you're browsing an e-commerce website, and if you actually go ahead, search for a particular product, there are actually going to be 1,000 products in that category. So in order to scroll all these products, it's not actually possible to load up all the products on a single web page, and it's also not a good practice to load all the products on a single page, and that's why we use pagination to kind of split up all those products on different pages. So let's say, for example, on a single page you only want to display 10 products. So using pagination you can actually go ahead and do that. That is, you can limit the amount of products or limit the amount of content which you actually show onto a single web page, and you can split the remaining or rest of the contents on different pages. So we are going to learn how exactly can we implement pagination in Django by creating a very simple and a very basic app, but we are actually going to make use of this concept in the next section, which is the e-commerce section. Now let's talk about search. So any website which you're building should have a search functionality into it. That means, let's say if your site is listing up a bunch of products, you actually need to give a search bar which looks something of this sort, and it should allow your users to search for some content on your site. So let's say, for example, you have an e-commerce website and you want to allow users to search for products, then you must build this search functionality in your site. So in this section, we are going to design a simple app which is actually going to make you understand how exactly you can build a search functionality in your Django app to search for certain items. Then the most important thing, which I should have actually covered earlier, is virtual environment. So what exactly is virtual environment? So virtual environment is not going to be your app feature, but instead it's actually something which you use during Django app development process. So virtual environment is a tool in Python which helps in creating new virtual environments for your projects. So virtual env is actually a tool which helps you to create virtual environments. But what exactly are virtual environments? So a virtual environment is something which provides an isolated environment which you can use for each project. So you may create different virtual environments for each project. So now, why exactly do you need to use virtual environment? Each virtual environment may have different set of packages, modules and libraries installed. So let's say if you want to create a specific project, and let's say you only want to install libraries for that project itself, and you don't actually want those libraries installed on your computer globally. So in that case, using virtual environment, you can create an isolated environment for that specific project and only install the packages and libraries which are specific to that project. This is what exactly virtual environments allows you to do. So you can also actually create a virtual environment and have different versions of Python and Django installed. So let's say if you actually want to build a Django project, and for that particular Django project, let's say for some reason you actually want to use Python 2 and Django 1.11. So it does not make much sense to actually use those versions, but let's say for some reason you want to use those versions. So what you can do is that without even installing Python 2 and Django 1 on your machine, you can actually create an isolated environment using virtual env, and you can actually install Python 2 and Django 1.11 on that environment and actually use that environment to run your application. And in a similar fashion, by using the same virtual environment, you can create a brand new virtual environment which uses Python 3 and Django 2.2. So this is the main advantage of using virtual environment. That is, it provides an isolated development environment for each individual project. So we are going to learn about how to create a virtual environment while starting up a project. Then we will go ahead and go through user permissions as well. So what exactly are user permissions? So whatever data which you have in your web app should not actually be accessible to everyone. So let's say if you are using, or if you have created a banking application for people, so all the content inside that application should obviously be not visible to everyone. That is, if you are a bank employee, you should be only able to view people's accounts balances, and you should not be able to see any other confidential information. Now, some data in your web app, as I earlier mentioned, might be confidential, and that data must only be revealed to certain specific set of users. And not all users should have permission to perform CRUD, which means not all users should have the permission to perform the operations like create, read, update, and delete. So if you're building a banking software, you should not actually allow the bank employee to update or delete your data. And even if an end user is using it, the end user should only be able to actually go ahead and read his data or read his account balance, and he shouldn't be actually able to go ahead and update or delete that data. So we are going to learn about user permissions as well. That is how exactly you can go ahead and use the Django admin to set certain user permissions for all the users for your site. So these are the 4 features which we are going to learn in this section, and for the very same reason we are actually going to develop a very small and basic looking application which is going to cover all those 4 important features. So from the next lecture onwards, let's actually go ahead and start building this app which has these features.